welcome back to Neurosci Q, the best place on YouTube to increase your neuroscience IQ. This week, we have another special guest for you guys. We're joined by Max Newlon from BrainCo. BrainCo is a company born out of the Harvard Innovation Lab. They develop cognitive training technology products and apply their expertise in machine learning, design, and neuroscience to create innovative cognitive-based applications. Welcome to the channel, Max.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're really excited to have you today. Obviously, you have a pretty interesting background. So tell us a bit about yourself and your journey to becoming the president of what is arguably one of the top BCI companies in North America.
Yeah, absolutely. So the story starts, I guess, in high school. I was really interested in the mind, in psychology, in meditation even, and what the potential was of the human mind. How can understanding this thing that we all have lead to improved well-being, improved performance or outcomes in kind of whatever we do, our lives, our work, etc. So I studied cognitive science at UConn, University of Connecticut, which was the perfect major for me because I loved how interdisciplinary it was. So you're taking pieces of philosophy and psychology and neuroscience and linguistics, anthropology, etc., to see how systems work. And through that experience at UConn, I got exposed to some more mind-body types of approaches to understanding the world. And I worked for this great company that put on webinars, kind of like what we're doing, for doctors and nurses and psychotherapists to learn about the latest research in mind-body approaches to wellness. So meditation, trauma-informed therapies, neuroscience. How does understanding the research side really impact our understanding of well-being and how to achieve it? So one of the people that we interviewed, her name was Sarah Lazar. She runs a fMRI research lab at Massachusetts General Hospital, and she was doing research on neuroscience and meditation. So after I graduated, I got an introduction, started volunteering for her for free for a while, just to get my foot in the door. Maybe there's a little lesson right there for the listeners. And eventually that turned into a full-time gig. And at the same time, I was also working in another research lab. We were investigating the impact of deep brain stimulation surgery on people with Parkinson's disease and other movement disorders. So invasive neurotechnology, kind of like what Elon Musk is doing. So I had this cognitive science, neuroscience, studying the impact of meditation on the brain via fMRI, and eventually got exposed to a new field called adult development, which is the stages people go through, I guess, as they become more wise or more perceptive. From a Western psychological point of view, went back to school at Harvard to really dig into this. And when I graduated, I kind of had this fork in the road in terms of which way to go. You know, do I go towards the leadership development stuff, or do I go towards this really interesting startup called BrainCo? And I got some really great advice from one of my best friends where he said, those leadership development companies, they will be there next year. The startup could take off and you'll be kicking yourself if you miss it. So if you join the startup and you hate it, you can always go back to leadership development, but this window of opportunity, maybe you should take advantage of it. So I joined the company as a research scientist, helped them get their first study set up, first neurofeedback algorithm set up. And when I joined, there were about 15 of us, and we were still working on the prototype technology. And now we've grown quite a bit. There's about 200 of us worldwide. And my job now is to run the operation in the US. And here we are.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. And when I mentor the students in my group, I say kind of theoretical things that you said you've experienced practically. So for all the young members, rewind that story and listen to it again, because I think that was really there is some gold bits in there. I think you cannot underestimate what you said about volunteering and getting unique experiences that otherwise would take you many, many more years to get. And I think the fact that you said that you took a risk early in your career that led to something so amazing, is also good advice. I tell my lab that the only thing I regret is not taking more risks when you're young, because as you said, they're correctable if they go south, but you can never get them back once you have a mortgage, once you have kids, and you have people depending on you for stability. That's when you can't take risks. So I think that was a great story for a young audience to really learn from.
Yeah, the just to build on that a little bit, one of the things that ties into what we're talking about is the fact that you can do the thing that maybe you think you can't. So I didn't understand that I could do what I'm doing now. I never thought that was possible. My frame of reference, or my frame of mind for the world, was get a PhD, maybe do some research, and slot into a groove that was predefined. And that is the right decision for a lot of people. But what I didn't understand was that there's this whole other world, and that, oh, those people who run or start companies, they are not of this planet. I have no relation to them. I can't even imagine what that would be like. And that's just not true. So to your point, looking back, maybe what I would have done differently, though everything has worked out great, but maybe what I would have done differently is maybe tried to start a company earlier, or figured out what it meant to be an entrepreneur. I didn't even know. I had all these assumptions that, entrepreneurs who take core technology developed in the lab and bring it to market were really serious people in suits who, I don't even know, did business, whatever that meant. But really what you're doing is you're taking interesting technology and solving important problems for people and building out a team or a network that can support that change you're trying to have. And so I think it's, for me at least, having my eyes open to other possibilities was incredibly powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And even as a student, I think you're exposed to so little, especially if you go into science. You think like there's maybe a few opportunities. You could do research, you could go into teaching, or you could become a doctor, and then that's about it. So what advice do you have for students out there that maybe are thinking of taking the path of an entrepreneur rather than sticking to some of these more mainstream paths?
So a few things. There's one kind of useful psychological exercise you can do that I still do, which is really feel, and maybe this doesn't work for everyone, but it might work for some of you. Really feel into the thing you truly want, and try to tamper down any fear you feel while you're doing that. It's strange. It can be scary to really feel what you want for some reason, probably because it feels like there's a threat that you're going to lose something, or like you're going to lose what you have, or something bad's going to happen. But if you can truly feel into what you want, you'll get clearer answers. And maybe you don't even need to take action on them, but take that first step to really feel into what you truly, truly want. The second thing is, if people are interested explicitly in entrepreneurship or something like that, there's a few paths. So one would be join a more established company so you can see what a functional team looks like. The other path is, and maybe you want to do both so you get lots of experience. Join a smaller team that is still forming. It's companies, the analogy is any system, even like, let's just say a developing organism. At the beginning, it's really undifferentiated. And in the company sense, everyone's wearing all these different hats, which means everyone's doing everything. All the cells in the organism or organization are undifferentiated. And then slowly things start to specialize and build out and become more complex. And so at the earlier stages, it's very, very different. And I would just warn people, this is a healthy warning, that you're going to have to take on a lot more responsibility than you're used to. For me, at least in school, there was always a rubric. I knew what I had to do. There's someone I could ask questions for, lean on, and they would tell me the answer, more or less. But in startup land, like there's probably not going to be someone like that, depending on the stage that you start. You have to find out the answer for yourself. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to find the resources you need, and you just have to get it done. You just have to find a way, and likely you're going to have to define your own path for getting that thing done. So it takes a lot more self-autonomy or autonomy. So yeah, it's a culture shock. For me, it was, but it makes you grow up or mature quite quickly because it's necessary in order to get these things done.
For sure. And you mentioned, I like that you mentioned the teamwork and starting off undifferentiated and then branching out. And with the team at BrainCo, I know you guys have your 4 main brands. So you've differentiated a bit into the NeuroMaker STEM kit, you've got the Focuscom, and then the software developer kit as well. And then your brain robotics prosthetic that actually put you guys on the Times list for best innovations a couple years ago. So that was awesome. I'll link a video in the description for anyone interested in that. But on that note, you guys seem like a company that has excelled in various niches. So what do you think it is that makes your team so successful?
We did like an expansion and contraction and then like redefined our focus. So what I mean by that is we had this core technology of understanding the brain, and we went in 1,000 directions. We tested a bunch of markets, bunch of applications of the technology, had a bunch of really incredible demos that allowed us to feel out these different spaces. And then at the beginning of 2020, we pulled it together and reevaluated where we wanted to put our focus. And that's how we have the 4 business units that we have now. And then what we did was we asked ourselves, okay, now that we have our understanding of what the foci are going to be, how do we define or configure the teams for success? And so for us, it's a mix of people who are solely dedicated on a specific business unit, and then also typically the more higher level people support all the business units. So we have this kind of mixture of people who are purely focused on certain things and people who can see across the board. But this quote unquote secret, and this is one of the hardest things to do in startup land, is make sure you're solving a real problem for a real person. It feels good to come up with a cool idea, but cool ideas don't make money 99% of the time. Your job as an entrepreneur is to solve a real problem, a problem so significant that someone is willing to take out their wallet and give you money that they earned by spending their time at their job. So that's honorable, and that's important and significant. And so you have to do a good job delivering something that's of value, because that person is trading the value that they've created for the thing that you're giving them. So, the lesson, I guess, is really focus on solving a real need. Try to let go of your preconceived notions of what it should be and really solve the issue. And so for us, what that meant, or I'll just give you one example, really, really clear example. We were starting with EEG stuff, EEG applications, and we tried to use EEG to control a prosthetic, and that doesn't work. The signals, people don't have enough volitional control over their brain to control a prosthetic with the precision that they need to. So we had to kind of scrap that idea, and now we use EMG, so muscle signals, to control that. And that's kind of how the industry does it anyways. But we were able to make this really incredible innovation as it relates to the precision of control we can give our users. But the lesson again is choose the right tool for the right job. Don't try to force EEG to control prosthetics. Don't try to force a solution into a space where there's maybe another solution, another technique, another tool that's a better fit. That's a hard lesson, but a really important one.
That's great. Speaking of your core products, seems like the Focuscom is something that people can go out today and buy.
Yeah.
And there's a number of these products on the market, but it seems like you guys are focusing on productivity, improving the kind of performance of the users. Can you give us a kind of a concrete example of how you've been able to test that and what the kind of metrics were that showed kind of a meaningful benefit for people using this device? How long do they have to use it per day? What do they report is the benefit of using it?
Sure. Yeah. So Focuscom, I actually have one right here, is brain training for better focus and a calmer mind. And at the heart of it is using this type of training. So I meditate every day. I think meditation is great. But I think what people want is to have that bleed into their life so that their interactions with people and the rest of their life is more beneficial to them and the people around them. So at the heart of Focuscom is teaching people how to apply these skills. So you can do the entire experience with your eyes open. You don't have to, sit with cross-legged with your eyes closed or anything like this. It's really about applying your meditation practice or your brain training or your mind training, what you might call off of the cushion. So it's a really good fit for things like sport, things like workplace wellness, or even people who, maybe they practice meditation, maybe they don't, but they still want those types of benefits. So we have done several studies in a variety of different spaces. I'll mention the most recent one that we wrapped up. We were looking at the use of Focuscom in the workplace. And so what we had people do was do the daily challenge in the app, which is just a fun way to get a taste of different aspects of the product. And the daily challenge takes you through our learn, practice, challenge process, where you learn how to relax your mind with the meditation. You practice entering that state with a neurofeedback game, like make the rocket ship fly by getting your mind into that relaxed state using the technique you just learned. And then the last step is challenge. Can you challenge your mind to stay calm under pressure? And the way we do that is through giving people different executive function tasks that target their memory, sustained attention, decision-making, etc. They have to perform well on the task. They have to be on, quote unquote, on, while also remaining relaxed. And that's that transfer. Can we help people transfer the skills of relaxation into a situation where they have to be more engaged? So they did this process. It takes 10 or 15 minutes a day. They get new games, new meditations every day. So 10 or 15 minutes a day. And what we saw was over 6 weeks, on average, anxiety reduced by 13%. We use the state trait and anxiety inventory. Burnout on average decreased by 21%. We use the Copenhagen burnout inventory. And then also well-being got a 25% boost. We use the World Health Organization well-being index. And so the N for those studies, I think right now is about right around 30 or 40, and we're adding more and more studies. So, it's still what I would call the early stages of proof, but we have a definitive, statistically significant improvement based on these types of trainings. And now we're doing more studies in schools with teachers and students. We finished a study with some athletes, and now we're working with some different Olympic teams to expand that research too. But I think a really great strand of our DNA that I'm really proud of is that we're really research focused. So, we won't make a claim that we can't back up, or if we're talking in an area that we're discovering, we try to be really upfront about that. So that, I think, should give you a sense of kind of what it's like. It's 10 or 15 minutes a day, 4 to 6 weeks, and some really important improvements in well-being from doing that training.
That's super interesting. I'm a sports fan myself, so I'm always thinking about what the next innovation is in kind of sports performance. The kind of technology. I like tennis, so the kind of the string and the racket have been kind of optimized, and the kind of nutrition and exercise have been optimized. So I'm always thinking, is there a way to improve the mental toughness of players, and if that's going to, improve people's performance in high pressure situations. So that's I appreciate that you guys are doing kind of scientific studies to back up your claims. I think that's really important, because sometimes you can get really caught up in the hype that this does this, this does that. Theoretically, it should improve. But I think the fact that you guys are taking the time to do these kind of both time consuming and expensive studies to really show what is needed to benefit from these technologies, I think is really exciting. One kind of follow-up question I noticed that you have a strong support in the weightlifting community.
Mhm.
What about lifting heavy objects? Like, what's the feedback you've gotten from them? What does lifting something super heavy have to do with the mind?
Yeah. So with Olympic weightlifting, it's different than like if you guys see the strongman competitions or powerlifting competitions where they're trying to lift the most amount of weight possible, and sometimes it's not very fast, right? They're really grinding it out to, let's say for a deadlift where you're picking the weight up off the ground. In Olympic weightlifting, it's incredibly quick. They have to be very explosive, and they have to hit the perfect technique, otherwise they will miss the lift. So imagine a sport where your performance comes down to 6 tries, and each try, like the explosive component, is less than a second. So all of that pressure, all of that training comes down to just a handful of really quick performances, right? Like the explosive components are less than a second. So that pressure, you can understand or imagine how high pressure those situations are. So one component of it being a really good fit is helping people deal with that performance anxiety, or helping them stay in the zone or block out distraction. So what we found to be true for almost all athletes, and we found this to be true for Olympic weightlifters as well, is they can perform really well in practice in the gym, but when it comes time for the competition, some people crack under pressure or just have a more difficult time living up to what they know they can do, either because of stress or distraction from the crowd, etc. Or maybe they make a small mistake and they have trouble recovering from that mistake. And all these things that these athletes experience, I think we can all relate to as well. Like, have you ever done something and then either at work or whatever, and it's hard to kind of right the ship, so to speak, get yourself back in center, kind of let that go and move on with your life instead of ruminating on it all the time. So that same kind of skill of getting over mistakes or bouncing back, dealing with distractions are really common for the human experience. And we saw that particularly true in weightlifting. And it's funny that you mentioned tennis, because we have one of the top tennis players in the world using this right now. So Iga Swiatek, I think she just won the Italian Open a few weeks ago. She uses our product with her sports psychologist, Daria. And, they use it in a really particular way, which was interesting to us. They use it before every match to upregulate her mindset. So Focuscom, right, has both sides of the coin. Some people, like what I just described about weightlifters, a lot of what I was just talking about was about down regulating. So perhaps there's too much anxiety, there's too much rumination, and we have to kind of suppress that or let that go. And then there are other situations where you want to upregulate the mind. So the focus games that we have, for example, help upregulate the mind and get someone into that more heightened state. So it's about self-mastery on both sides of the coin, and learning as a human being, whether you're an athlete or not, what do I need to do in this moment to get myself into that optimal state? I think a lot of people make the mistake that if I'm feeling worried or anxious, I must try to calm down. And that's not always true. That's not always the best strategy. Sometimes what you actually want to do is push down on the pedal of focus. And when you focus, it will actually give you the sensation or the mindset that you want. If you're kind of pushing on the pedal or the lever of relaxation too much, that's not always the best fit. So one of the big benefits of Focuscom is it teaches you what you need in the moment, given the situation, to be in flow, to be in that kind of productive, calm, happy mindset.
Yeah, I want to touch on the games because you mentioned the games too, so that's really cool. Because I teach swimming lessons and I coach especially the little kids. And when we're teaching little kids, you don't just say, okay, go do 10 laps. You have to kind of make it fun. You have to make it a game for them. And I think that's important in learning any skill. So even learning how to focus or how to be calm, you want to make the learning fun. But how do you guys come up with these games and test them out before you make them available to the public? How many games do you have? Do you have like a list, a library of different focus games and different calm games that you can go through?
Yeah. So in the app, we split up our games into calm games and focus games. So calm games reinforce this mindset of being at ease and relaxed and calm. And they all work with a really similar mechanism, which is the more you go into that place, and we're measuring it with the headset. So I'll take a quick step back. Your brain is giving off this electrical activity. The headband is picking up on this electrical activity based on over 1,000 features in your raw EEG signal. We're quantifying how relaxed your mind looks or how active your mind looks. And we give you a score, and it's changing, second by second. Your score is kind of fluctuating. A really high score towards 100, that's the top score. It means your mind looks super relaxed, probably meditative, very at ease, not a lot of cognitive workload, low cognitive workload, really relaxed. And then a lower score is higher cognitive workload. The gears are turning, maybe you're even stressed. And in the calm games, the higher you can get your score using the techniques or strategies you've learned from the meditation teachers or the sports psychologists that teach you in the app, the more you start to win that game. So the most simple example would be our rocket ship game. The more I can flex that mental muscle of calm, the higher the rocket ship will go. And I'll see my score rise, and I'll see the rocket ship go up. And now I'm getting that positive reinforcement, that positive feedback that I am in fact getting into that state. It would be like comparing doing meditation, sitting down, closing your eyes for 20 minutes. And at the end, you ask yourself, did I just do anything? Like, what was actually happening? And I think that's common for beginners. And, as you get better at differentiating the mental states, maybe it's a little easier, but it's still quite difficult. So with the games and with Focuscom in general, you're getting this quantitative feedback, which to your point, and from my perspective, is much more fun and engaging. So the more I relax my mind, the higher the rocket ship goes. We have like race cars. We have this little bird you can make fly. We have a city, and you can help the city wake up, and the sun will start to rise if you can get your mind in this relaxed state. And the different leveling or difficulty of the game will adapt to you based on how you're doing in the moment. So it's a really kind of personalized experience where we help people get into that calm state. And then the focus games are a little different, but that's how the calm games work.
I don't know if it defeats the purpose, but can you play with your friends, or that defeat the kind of self-improvement aspect of meditation?
Yeah, so this is a line that we carefully toe. So Focuscom is not a meditation product. We use meditation as one of the tools in the toolbox to help people achieve the state that they want. So I think that helps us approach this with a bit more kind of objectivity or scientific kind of angle. Though I would say there are some people who really want it to be a personal experience. They have their own scores, they see themselves improving, etc. And there are some users that we have that are very competitive. They tend to be the athletes who are posting their scores with their friends on social media and like going back and forth trying to see who can get a better Focuscom score. And I think it's really whatever works for you. Like, this is not something where we're going to dictate how you should use this product. At the end of the day, what I care about is that people are enjoying the product, they're engaged with what they're doing, and they're making progress. And if for some people that means having some healthy competition and some playfulness with your friends about who can make the rocket ship fly faster or higher, then more power to you.
Of course, yeah. In the lab, when we were doing our EEG research, I'm kind of using my siblings as lab rats at the moment, and they were getting competitive with each other to see who could generate more alpha waves. And then my youngest sister meditated like for 30 minutes straight, just trying to beat everyone. So it depends on the person. But yeah, I think it's cool to see that after you conduct your research, you can end up with a product instead of a paper, and you see the direct impact that it has on people's lives. So speaking of that impact, though, I want to just shift the conversation back to your other product, the Prosthetic, for a little bit now. And I'm sure this product will definitely be helping a lot of people improve their quality of life. So is it available yet for the public? I know in the last video that I saw you guys speaking about it, it was still up for FDA approval. How's that going?
Really well. So we finished the major part of that preparation, and now it's mostly about just preparing the submission. So the prosthetic, again, the innovation or the newness, the thing that's really going to deliver a lot of the value is in the algorithm. So, our expertise is in understanding neurosignals, both from the brain and muscles. And what we've been able to do is understand the signals that are coming off of the residual limb and create a signal processing algorithm that gives users control over individual finger movements. So whereas right now with available products, they either are directly controlling the prosthetic to trigger a specific gesture, maybe with a flexation or relaxing or pressing a button on the hand or shaking the hand or something. There are some systems out there that will classify specific signals into a handful of different gestures, predefined gestures. And what we've been able to do is create an algorithm accurate enough to differentiate each individual finger. And when you can do that, you can do unlimited gestures. So when you go into that mode in the prosthetic, they can do any type of combination they want, unlimited gestures. It's really an intuitive and free control over the prosthetic. So our work right now is to get FDA approval and then work on our second generation product, which will, provide this type of experience. So, with that product, it is incredibly moving because you're giving people the opportunity to have an experience that feels so real. I think a lot of prosthetics out there, all prosthetic companies deserve, a round of applause for helping all these types of people. What I'm really proud of the team for doing is giving people an experience that's, the most lifelike experience possible. And you see that in some of our users who get quite emotional when they use the product or even when they find out about the product, because it's the promise of them being able to get this type of functionality, this natural functionality back. So it's a small group of people in the world, smaller group of people in the world who need this type of technology, but it's certainly super, super high in terms of the impact scale. And so from your point, that lab to marketplace is a really interesting spectrum. On one side in academia, the research labs are discovering brand new things that will eventually come to market, or at least build our understanding of the world. On the other side, there are people who just make products. And that's kind of the space they live in. They're really good at doing that. And then in the middle, in some place, there are companies who are both doing the research, maybe not quite as deep as academic labs, or maybe they are. And then they're also bringing it to market on the other side of the spectrum. They're doing both. And then somewhere in there too, there are companies that will partner with labs to commercialize what they've developed. So it's not really binary. Okay, am I going to work in an academic lab, or am I going to work in industry? I don't know, making some sort of product. It's really a spectrum, and there's a variety of opportunities for everyone on different parts of the spectrum to work with each other to have the type of impact that you want. And I think it's also important to note that it is very important for certain people to just focus on academia and do a kick-ass job at publishing papers and changing the world in that way. And it's important for people to focus on just industry, and it's important people to focus on the different areas. It's just about the fit for what the kind of impact and the kind of work that you want to do and the kind of team and environment that you want to work in. I think that's how you kind of determine, where you want to be. But the value chain is equal in a lot of ways throughout the spectrum. It just depends on what you want to do as an individual.
Of course, yeah. And I'm sure it has like a profound impact on those lives. So are there electrodes on the arm? So it's picking up signals from the nerves in your arm to control it?
Yeah, so in the socket, so you can imagine if I had lost my arm right here, so we'll call that a transradial amputation or transradial amputee. There's a socket that's built personally just for me, and it slides onto my residual limb, And inside the socket, there's a number of sensors, depending on the level of control that you're going to use. Maybe there's 2, maybe there's 8. And the sensors are picking up on the electrical activity coming from my muscles. And then at the end of the socket, there's the actual mechanical hand that we've built. What we'll do for the user is put them through a 15-minute to 45-minute training process where they'll sit in front of the computer and we'll ask them to think about pointing their index finger. And when they do, there's a subtle movement in their residual limb, in the muscles that are in the residual limb. And we'll train the system to detect that specific pattern. And we'll do that for the rest of the fingers. Maybe we'll do that for some certain gestures. And now we have a personalized custom algorithm just for that user. And every time the sensors see that specific signature, it triggers the hand to move in that way. And through that process, you can get to the point where they can control the hand just like they want to.
That's awesome. And I'm sure.
So the rehabilitation process is 15 to 45 minutes from when you start training through this kind of online tutorial to when you can start using it.
Yeah. So wow, I would call it the training process, and it depends on their muscle control. And like, for example, if there's someone whose residual limb is maybe the muscles are more atrophied, it could be more difficult for them to control the really fine motor movements. And maybe it's a better fit for them to program 10 different gestures that they're going to use throughout their day. And maybe someone with better motor control or better muscle condition, they're able to achieve individual finger movement. But the actual training itself, it doesn't take long. And again, wow, it depends what you want to do. If you want the individual finger control, yeah, it's going to be at the higher end, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But if you just want to program a few different gestures, then yeah, it won't take that long at all.
Impressive.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I guess even in your team, back to the spectrum you were talking about, you'd have people that are more on that research end, and then people who are more taking that product to market.
Yeah. So we have, dedicated research staff. We have, to get this done, think about this. You need people who are experts in EEG. You need people who are experts in mechanical engineering to actually build the circuit boards, or electrical engineering to build the circuit boards. You need the mechanical engineering, let's say, to build the hand. You need people with expertise in design. You need people with expertise in artificial intelligence and the algorithm side. You need software developers. You need a marketing team, a sales team. You need all of the, general and administrative tasks to be done too. So it takes this incredible team of people to deliver something like this. And I think something that's really special about BrainCo are the quality of people that we've been able to attract with this vision and mission that gives us a particular advantage when we're trying to solve these problems.
Yeah, collaboration, it's key. And I think that's another good tip for anyone watching if they're trying to get into something like this. Don't get overwhelmed and think you have to do it all. You don't have to know how to program and do the research and know the neuroscience, know the marketing aspect. You need to get a great team together to be able to do something like this, because it's too much to take on your own.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for all the cool stories you shared with us today. Thanks for talking about your product. I hope all the viewers out there enjoyed watching this. If you want more information about BrainCo, we'll share the website in the description. And that's it for today's video. So thanks for coming, Max.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Had a great time.
Nice to meet you. Stay safe.
Thank you. You guys too.